Susan. The last time I was here, we had another similar event, and it was in the backyard. You remember?
Yeah.
It was wonderful. Excuse my voice; it's a little hoarse, and I don't normally stand drinking, but we had a little Jack Daniels, and he said it. I'm very grateful to be back here. I'm particularly grateful to be here to talk about the school district candidates. This is the 13th this past year school district candidates group of them that I've done this for. It might be because my mom, because she was a teacher for 27 years. Down the road, a rival of Radnor, Cardinal O'Hara, but we didn't get to play football really. But and then my sister is a teacher. But I'm really glad to be here because this group of people, so many assembled here. It could be George, who I just called last night for advice, got him on a train, going for Allison, where's she? Going to dinner, he told me. And it's just a great group of people who are very supportive of me. So when Rob called up, I said, I'd do it in a heartbeat, as long as I got to meet his daughters. And I finally got to meet them. Lena and Debbie are over here. And the reason is, I remember talking to Rob a couple years ago, and we had chatted about being a stay-home dad, because that's what I've been the last couple of years, sort of. And he told me about a book he was writing. Back then, as I remember, the title was a little different. It was Daddy 2001. Am I wrong?
The 2.0.
That 2.0. Now it's gone to the publisher, that's right, as I think it's Daddy 3.0.
That's right.
3.01, isn't it?
No, it's just 3.0. It was 2.0, now it's 3.0.
3.0. So I told my daughter about that, and she's 12, the same age as Lena is. I said, he's written a book about raising his daughters and all. Oh, I wasn't sure what the book was about, but that's what I said to her. Because my daughter looks at me, puts her hand on my arm, says, Daddy. So I'm writing my book. It's about raising my father. It's a true story. But I am glad to get about, because she's also the one that said to me about a year ago, I got a little bit too involved in her homework. You know how stay-at-home dads are. Does he do that once in a while? She's kind of quiet. She turns to me, and I said, honey, what's the problem? She says, Daddy, when are you going to get a job? But I'm here because of the candidates themselves. And I'm also here because of education. When I went down to Congress, I had to fight to get on the education committee. For those who remember, I had run a national security that begins at home, in health, in education, in economic security. And so I initially got put on the Armed Services and the Intelligence Committee because, well, he's a Navy guy, and he headed Deep Blue, the Navy's anti-terrorism unit. That's where he belongs. And I asked to get out of that and to be on the Education Committee. Because in the Navy, I had learned it's the long pole in the tent. When I had joined up during the Vietnam era, I had 5 chief petty officers, and only one had ever graduated from high school. And they were mighty fine for the time. But we were shooting missiles 25 miles. By the time I commanded that carrier battle group off of Afghanistan, we were shooting missiles 1,000 miles into a landlocked country. We had young men and women jamming satellites for cyberspace warfare. And so you couldn't be promoted to be a senior chief petty officer 30 years later unless you had earned, on our money, your time, at least an associate's college degree in a technology. That's how much we value training and education. And that's why this election is so important. It's also important because Pennsylvania actually began education right. I see all these issues that are going to come before them. How do you deal with the fact that 1 out of every 80 boys born in Radnor last year had autism? It's such an epidemic today. How are you going to do with Common Core is or isn't going to be accepted in Radnor, in the state? Are you going to take maps, the way that you measure Common Core, and integrate it? How costly is that going to be? Is it worth that benefits from that cost? You're focused very much on making sure that you have universal kindergarten. But studies also show that if you can get them from pre-K all the way through 3rd grade in a very hospitable place the rudder for those children, cognitive and non-cognitive regime, is set for life pretty much. It's hard to change them from going the wrong way. So for me, it isn't each discrete issue that's important about these candidates. It's how they'll look at these issues. And I think the template by which they do it, our governor actually gave us the model. Now, it was in 1684. And the very first governor of the state of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, established the first public school, downtown Philadelphia. And when he signed that charter, he said and wrote, "Everyone will attend. The rich will pay a reasonable fee, and the poor shall attend for free, so that all can contribute to the common weal." Those two wonderful traits about our American character is what I felt out there in the military. We're pretty rugged individuals. Who doesn't think SEAL Team 6 isn't a rugged individual? But you come together, often with your collective resources, to have one another's back. Because we are, as one of your candidates said, Rob, on his website, we are in this together. And SEAL Team 6 was in it together, having one another's back when they got bin Laden. As someone said, I guess it was me, everybody in the military is a Democrat. They just don't realize it.
That's right.
Health security for everybody, education security, so that they have economic security. And then those who come out are double the citizen to help. But that's how I believe that Rob and Bruce, Susan and Lydia will look at the issues within that wonderful template, not to stymie, but to encourage that entrepreneurship, that kind of rugged individualism that my father, many people came over here to be all they could be, but it's at its best when it's always aligned with the common good, the common enterprise, that common mission. That's how I walked out of the Navy. And that's what I think is really we're at a struggle with. Whether you're at a struggle here at Radnor, with certain candidates that really represent, it's all about strangling the government resources and doing nothing with it. As some of the candidates are saying, wait a minute, the less government, the better. No, it's not big or small, it's whether it's effective, or whether it's on the center stage down in Washington, D.C., to where 18 senators, including one from here, would go so far as not to raise the debt ceiling and keep government closed. There's got to be some pragmatic ways to do this. Rob's demonstrated it. I mean, the fact that you could go in and take an $82 billion budget and can actually say, wait a minute, I'm going to find, over, I think it's $2 million in savings by restructuring and having our bond rating go up here in Radnor. Immense. He's a Republican and he never said it. Yeah. But he understands, and that's what Democrats are when they're right. And they're not always right. I'm not here because they're Democrats. I'm here because they believe in a certain way to do business. That we need to be accountable with the public dime. And so this is the very first group, as Democrats have led it here in Radnor. And you all know this, that has actually had a decrease in taxes this past year. They could have raised it to 1.7, estate tax millage, but didn't do that because they didn't have to, because of the efficiency and the effectiveness of what they did. And they're willing to work with others to make that happen. Look, take Lydia. Couldn't have a second person sitting who's better next to him on that board as he makes sure that we find the savings that are being wasted from waste or not as efficient. To have someone who has a background in psychology. People come up to me and say at times, what should I do? I want to get into politics. And I said, study anthropology or psychology. Understand human nature. If I had to do it again, that's what I would do. On her thing, it talks about a win for all. Where you've done stuff from arbitration to mediation, where you go and make sure that people can work together. The art of psychology and making it a win-win, not is what is present in politics today. You must lose and I must win. That's not really what I find that people want deep down. Yeah, I got the extremist guy, but not the pragmatic middle. And that's why I think she's wonderful. And then Susan, tough woman. Why? Because she's a nurse. You know, the very first group that actually endorsed me for this, as I seek the Senate, is the PASNAP, the Nurses Association. And did I love it? Yes, they and the teachers are the two that I first called up to let them know I'm back in, or seeking the Senate.
Smart people.
It's, well, the reason I do this is, and I talk, is the nuns, the nuns.
I'm no nun, Joe.
Act like one, just don't slap my wrist with a ruler. But the key is they're like chiefs on a Navy ship. If anybody's ever been on a Navy ship, the chiefs, the senior, they keep the ship, the seams from opening. And that's how she is. You want her on that board because she'll make sure, like she does in the Radnor Planning Commission, that nothing gets by. And there's no overdevelopment. That we make sure we keep our open spaces. And that she'll fight tooth and nail to make sure that the people's interests are taken care of. And I think that's what people have to do. Leadership is about conflict, embracing conflict of ideas. And you need people out there who are willing to do that. And then Bruce, he comes from, as I was chatting with him, from the University of Penn. I'm a big fan of Penn. 5 of my 6 sisters went there. And I told him that I teach 1 day a week because I have to put something on the table for the family. After my daughter said I had to get a job, I said, well, I'm teaching that. And one of my students, I have studied education inequality, a massive issue here in America. It's not the massive issue in Radnor, but it's a massive issue. When you go downtown Philadelphia, only 27% of African American males are graduating from high school. You know what it is for white males, by the way? 33%. Yeah. Sometimes the educational inequality can be male and female. More women are entering college today than males. And so the issue becomes, and that's not what particularly he's studying the poverty aspect of it, and how people come from disenfranchised backgrounds, like often in Philadelphia, downtown Pittsburgh. Come with me to Harrisburg, where I'm going to be headed out to Cumberland County after I do another event in Westchester, do one out there. North of it, and we're going to Cumberland. But this was, he teaches there. But the aspect that he brings, if you go through it, is he teaches the teachers. There's nothing more precious. And that's why the school board would be great than the teacher. I know from my own daughter being a stay-at-home dad and how the teacher and who he or she is makes such a difference for her. But are you teaching them? Common Core, I think, could have some juice behind it. But only if you really are willing to put the time and effort into making sure the teachers are transitioned into it and not just throw it at them or all of a sudden start judging them at it. You know, tests need to be useful so that you get the diagnosis of whether the students are learning, not to impair the teacher from teaching. And so my take is that his ability to bring to that board, next to someone who's fiscally accountable, next to someone who's going to make the ideas be listened to and fought for, someone who's going to bring it together for a win-win, but someone who has a creativeness about them with a lot of ingenuity. I think you have 4 wonderful candidates we have, who all on their own bring something to the table, and together are awesome. So.